Good afternoon. Today I'm going to be talking about the station nightclub fire. This is going to be our presentation for Fire Prevention Technology 103. So what is the objective of this project? The objective is to create an awareness of the incident, which is the station nightclub fire, and the loss of life that occurred to it due to the absence, misuse, and failure of fire protection and detection systems, and just kind of how the combination of all of those things led to the outcome being as bad as it was because there wasn't really any safety features that were in place to help prevent this from happening. So as you can see here, this is a picture from the station nightclub fire. You can see that there's pyrotechnics going off up here and that there's flames coming from down here, which is the walls that were actually lit on fire from the pyrotechnics. And this was the pyrotechnics from the band that was playing there, which was the Great White. And yeah, it set the walls on fire and eventually the ceilings, leading to the nightclub to be burned down. So what was the incident? It was a fire that broke out on February 20th, 2003 at the Station Nightclub Fire in West Warwick, Rhode Island. The band, the Great Whites, was performing at the nightclub when their manager set off pyrotechnics. It was part of the inside the club that was part of the show. This ignited the polyurethane foam within the walls and ceilings, which caused the fire to spread quickly over the dance floor. And this polyurethane foam was used as a sound dampener for like the acoustics, and unfortunately it was extremely flammable, and that paired with the pyrotechnics led to an extremely fast moving fire. And one person said that it was a 15 by 15 fire with 12-foot ceilings, meaning that the fire was burning 15 feet high for 15 minutes and the ceilings were only 12 foot tall. So that fire just spread extremely quickly, which is part of the reason why it was so hard for people to escape and why there was such a high number of injuries and a number of deaths, especially because of the lack of exits. So the lives affected, there was over 100 deaths and over 200 people were injured. This is one of the largest fires in modern day history, and arguably a lot of experts say that it could have been prevented, which is why it's such an important fire to study because of how serious it was and how these people could potentially still be alive today if we had proper fire protection systems in place. So what were the contributing factors? The Station Nightclub fire was kind of one of those fires where it was just an accumulation of everything going wrong, and this just kind of led to it being as bad of an outcome as it was. There was no fire sprinklers installed. Granted, there was no requirement for them to be installed, but it definitely would have helped the fire not be as bad as it was. And then there was improper interior finished materials. The polyurethane foam was unfinished and was extremely flammable. There was wood frame construction. This paired with the polyurethane burning, the wood frame also ignited extremely easily, and this led to the fire being as bad as it was and burning down the entire nightclub. The use of pyrotechnics inside, that was what started the fire and what caused it to be as bad as it was, as the flames went everywhere. And then the egress points were not properly marked. There was no clearly marked exit signs. And I have a map of the nightclub a little bit later on, and you can see it would have been very hard to find the exit in an emergency situation. And then additionally, the workers were not properly trained on the evacuation procedures. Fires are one of those things that we don't really think about a lot because they are fairly rare, but when they happen, they're an extremely serious event and the people need to be properly trained with it, and unfortunately that was not the case with the workers. And then the occupancy was over the limit. There was more people in the nightclub than it was zoned for, and this paired with all the other issues, especially the lack of exits and properly marked ones, led to the number of deaths being as high as they were. So understanding the problem a little bit more, the pyrotechnics. The band's manager set off the pyrotechnics as part of the show, and there is some controversy over whether or not they were allowed, but at the end of the day, they were lit off, and this is what caused the foam on the side of the building and on the ceiling to ignite. And it wasn't properly finished, so It was extremely flammable, and then there was no fire sprinklers. Like I said, a lot of experts point to this as being one of the main reasons that the fire was as bad as it was, is that there was no fire sprinklers to stop the spread. And since then, the fire has been used as a major proponent of why fire sprinklers are so important and how they can prevent extreme losses of lives, like what happened with the Station nightclub fire. So this is another picture of the band performing with the pyrotechnics in the background. And as you can kind of see right here, the flames are already starting to ignite the foam. And the foam was used as like an insulation for the acoustics and to make it sound a bit better. But it was extremely flammable. And a lot of people actually thought it was part of the show at first. They didn't even realize that the nightclub was on fire. And so rather than evacuate, they stayed. And this was part of the reason why there was so many deaths, because there was a delayed response time in people evacuating the building. They didn't realize until the flames were starting to spread extremely rapidly what was happening. And so then some more contributing factors: exits were not marked. There wasn't a lot of clearly marked exits, and there also wasn't a lot of exits in general for the building. There was really only one main entrance and exit, and a lot of people ended up getting stuck at the door, trapping everyone else while the fire was still growing. And another factor was that there was an inward swinging door. Rather than the doors going outward and people able to push out, they kept pushing against the door, and that was actually blocking people from getting out. And then the building occupancy, there was a lot more people there at the night of the fire than there ever should have been. And this, paired with the hysteria, caused a lot of people to get pushed down and trampled on, and they were knocked unconscious, and this caused them to become incapacitated, and they weren't able to exit the building. So here's kind of that map of the Station nightclub fire. So this is the stage over here where the fire actually ignited, and as you can see, there is a stage exit, but that would really only have been known by the performers. And then there's the main dance floor and the game tables where most people would have been. And if you're over in this area, the only clear exit is the entrance and exit, is the main entrance. And so that's where a lot of people got trapped on. And each of these dots actually represent a victim of the fire. And so as you can see, a lot of people got trapped either right outside of this main exit or in the main exit itself in that hallway. And then there was another exit over by the main bar, but that also wasn't very clearly seen unless you were over in this main bar area. So there was a couple of victims over here, but for the most part, the people that were in this area were able to get out. And then a lot of people tried to come back by the kitchen and the video games and like the rear bar and this whole area over here. And there were some offices and bathrooms in the back, but there was no exits. There was only one exit through the kitchen, which also wasn't clearly marked. So a lot of people came back here searching for an exit and unfortunately got trapped and were not able to make it out. And another contributing factor was the entrance. There was stairs and a ramp, so you couldn't just come straight out. So the legal ramifications: Daniel M. Bleacher was the band manager. He was charged with involuntary manslaughter, which he pled guilty to and served 2 years. And then both club owners, Michael and Jeffrey Darden, were also charged with 200 counts of manslaughter. Never went to trial as they pled no contest, and they both received some sort of jail time or community service hours for their part in it. And then as of September 2008, at least 115 million people have been offered money as part of settlements. So here's another picture of the fire. As you can see, there's just completely burned down, and that's just how intense the fire was. And then aftermath of the fire, like I said, the nightclub owners were charged with involuntary manslaughter and forced to compensate the victims. And this has led to a large promotion of fire sprinklers. And the NFPA now recommends that all Station nightclub facilities with a capacity over 100 people be required to have fire sprinklers. And these are some photos of the victims from the nightclub fire. And these are our sources. Thank you.